With releases such as Doom Eternal and Ultra Kill, we've seen an unprecedented potential of upcoming retro shooters that harken back to the days of the 90s and early 2000s, and in between those retro-inspired shooters, or as some people say boomer shooters, we've also been seeing more fast-paced shooters with graphics that are just as good as Doom Eternal, which is the direction I want retro-inspired games to eventually reach. Here I list 30 upcoming boomer shooters or retro-style shooters, and in between a few arena shooters that you should definitely keep an eye on. I'll be going over each one briefly, and will provide links for all of them in the description. Let's begin. Number 1. Deadlink. It's always refreshing to see more cyberpunk fast-paced shooters, and Deadlink is no exception. It will incorporate roguelike elements, mixed in with randomized levels along with stylized gameplay, all packaged with a unique art style. It's set to be released in 2022 sometime soon, so keep an eye out. Number 2. Lunar Abyss. Now this is a title that I'm really looking forward to, combining fast-paced FPS gunplay with bullet hell attacks, something that you would see in a game like Ikaruga. It has an appealing red and black aesthetic with some nice graphics. If you like having a blend of dark sci-fi and horror aesthetics in your shooters, then this is one to look out for. Number 3. Impaler. Impaler is an arena-based shooter that infuses roguelike elements and a weapon that functions as both a building block and a way to annihilate incoming enemies. It strikes a nice balance between having polished pixel graphics and decent art design. You can play a demo that's available on Steam to get a taste, and it's scheduled to release sometime in 2022. From what I've played, it seems promising, and I've always enjoyed endless arenas, so this one will be a definite pickup for me when it comes out. Number 4. Fallen Aces. You take elements from LA Noire and Sin City, and then transform it into a boomer shooter, full of fist fighting and broken bottles and Tommy guns. It has a really nice comic book approach to its art style, and the setting is pretty refreshing, considering that most boomer shooters are often in a sci-fi setting. There's no official release date, and the developer has listed it as soon. Either way, I'm really looking forward to its eventual release. Number 5. The Age of Hell. Doom has enjoyed a vast wealth of total conversion mods over the years, from Total Chaos, Viet Doom, Ashes 2063, etc. But the Age of Hell feels like a reimagining of Doom, where you're still fighting Hellspawn, except if the Doom guy was like a paladin, which makes it seem more like a holy crusade. And the weapons seem like something that the Templars in the future would use. There's currently a demo, and it's still in development. I've played the demo myself, and I'm really excited to see its full completion. This is a must-watch if you're hungry for more total conversion mods. Number 6. Hellscreen. You take the concept of using a mirror for your car, then you apply that logic into an FPS. Case in point, you have Hellscreen, a shooter where you utilize two different camera systems, your main camera and the one that splits the screen, showing what's behind you. It's a trippy mechanic, since most people would just simply turn around, but the second camera hijacks the controls, so that you have to wire your brain into not turning around. I like the color palette for it, and the art style is appealing. There's currently a demo available, but it's listed as an early access even though you can't buy it yet. But it will be available with the first episode in October 22, and subsequent episodes will be released in the following years. Definitely watch out for this one. Number 7. Viral. This is an upcoming game that not many people know about, and I haven't been able to find a video for it yet, but based on the pictures I found, it seems to be a shooter that takes the modern and retro hybrid graphics that Proteus has. So far, it looks really good, and I'm hoping to see some gameplay for it soon. There's no current release date yet, but definitely keep an eye out for this one. Number 8. Project Yo-Yo. We don't often see bullet hell games confined into a shooter, or an FPS to be more specific, but there have been some exceptions, like with Lunar Abyss. This project plays on the idea of constantly reusing the same projectile, but in different ways, repurposing it each time, which makes for different attack patterns and different outcomes. It looks really interesting, and has a nice minimalistic approach to its presentation. It's been listed as free to play, and you can request access for a playtest, but the release date is planned for 2023 sometime. Number 9. Necromancer. I've always enjoyed endless modes, like in Halo, Call of Duty, Killing Floor, and Devil Daggers. Necromancer looks to be another endless mode centric game that looks really challenging but fun at the same time. You have a combination of spells and weapons to use against enemies that get bigger in numbers and become more chaotic as you continue to stay alive. The release date is to be determined, but there is a demo available that you can try out. I've yet to play it, but it looks right up my alley, and I'm eager to play when I get the chance. Number 10, called Decay. What we have here is a pretty meaty boomer shooter with Quake 3 or UT04 style graphics with a good pace of gunplay, exploration and secrets to uncover. I've always liked these kind of graphics, old but not too old, just appealing enough to make me appreciate the charm of the early 2000s. So far it looks promising, and I'm looking forward to its release, which is to be announced. Number 11, Selaco. There have been a few total conversion mods for Doom that have pushed the GZ Doom engine to its limits. Besides Total Chaos, Selaco is the best looking GZ Doom game I've seen thus far. It also seems to take its influence from Fear, an absolute masterpiece of a shooter. So far, it looks fantastic, and there's also a demo that you can try out right now. The full release will be long after your lifetime. Number 12, Brutal Fate. Sergeant Mark IV is somewhat of a controversial figure among the Doom community, but his efforts, along with those who helped him create Brutal Doom, and his work on Viet Doom has made him a household name in mod making and game developing. His latest project, Brutal Fate, seems to encompass all his experiences from modding Doom. It features the same kind of deal, with an entirely new setting and story, new weapons and monsters to fight. The release date is to be announced. Number 13, Beyond Sunset. You have here another cyberpunk-inspired entry that combines sword fighting and guns blazing. Think of it as a more media version of Shadow Warrior Classic. There's an incredible amount of detail to be found here, and it plays really well from what I've played when I tried the demo myself, which is available on Steam. Its release date will be sometime in 2023. Number 14, ASKE. This is probably the closest boomer shooter I've seen to being an exact replica of Quake, albeit with a few different things added into it. ASKE takes direct inspiration from Doom, Quake, Unreal, and Hexen, and many other games. If you're a huge fan of the first Quake, then this one might be worth checking out. It's been listed as coming soon, but there's a demo that's available, and so far it looks pretty good, even though it looks very similar to Quake. Number 15, Warhammer 40k Boltgun. The Warhammer 40k franchise is one that I love dearly, and is one of the grittiest sci-fi settings I've ever seen. I used to love the Dawn of War series when I was a kid, and I've been yearning for a good Warhammer 40k game ever since. Warhammer 40k Boltgun looks to be that game, putting a setting more dark and gritty than the others and combining it into a boomer shooter. It looks incredible so far, and I'm hoping that it delivers. It is scheduled to be released sometime in 2023. Number 16, A.W.O.L. This is a game that has a more tactical approach this time, but still provides the same boomer shooter feeling at least visually. People who are fans of the old school Ghost Recon games, or even the Soldier of Fortune games, may find this one interesting. Normally I don't play this style of shooters save for a few exceptions. I may still give it a look, and so far it is showing a lot of promise. The planned release date will be in approximately 11 years. Number 17, Cultic. In Blood, death was only the beginning. In Cultic, the same applies. Once again, another cult, another town overrun, and more old school weaponry and dynamite to throw at your foes. The demo I've played shows a good deal of its content, which so far has been really good. It is very faithful to its main source of inspiration, and I can't wait for its eventual release. There's currently a demo available on Steam, but no official release date yet. Number 18, Compound Fracture. So Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, and Turok have a threesome together. The end result is Compound Fracture. This one takes a slower approach in contrast to all the other games I've mentioned, adopting a survival horror twist, but aesthetically it still has the makings of a boomer shooter, at least the kind that adopt PS1 style graphics. I'm definitely keen for it, since it could potentially be a spiritual successor to Dino Crisis but in an FPS format. The release date is to be announced. Number 19, Coven. A medieval-inspired shooter that encompasses melee combat and eventually just resorting to guns. It also has a self-healing mechanic that involves eating the flesh of your enemies. Based on the demo I've played, it definitely has a few things that need working on, but so far the game is shaping up to be another worthwhile entry. There's a demo that's available on Steam, and the release date will be sometime in 23. Number 20, Incision. Body horror is something that's been hit and miss with me. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but in the case of Incision, its fusion with industrial sci-fi clicks with me, and the demo I've played shows a great deal of promise. The setting encompasses a massive growth that's taken over everything, and you, the player, will be cleaning it out with nothing but blood and guts after you walk out of each room. It is currently in early access, but it's not available yet, except for the demo which you can get on Steam. Number 21, Gloomwood. The creator of Dusk brings you a project very different from it, but also something just as interesting. Gloomwood is a combination of games like Thief and Bloodborn, having an emphasis on picking your fights and sneaking your way through the cityscape. I've always liked the Victorian setting being depicted in games, especially after playing Bloodborne, and Gloomwood also depicts it really well. I'm really looking forward to the release of this game, and speaking of release, it'll be out in just a couple of days as an early access, so you won't have to wait long for this one. There's a demo available if you don't feel like waiting. Number 22, Dimensional Slaughter. When I first saw this game, I couldn't help but draw parallels to Ultra Kill, which in fact is a good thing in my book. It plays upon the idea of being introduced to new enemies as you traverse new dimensions, along with new weapons, which makes sense, and the order is randomized, meaning that each playthrough will be different each time. Its release date is scheduled sometime for next year, but there's a demo that you can try out to get a taste. Number 23, Snuff. This game invokes the early 2000s feeling that I would have with games like Hitman, Soldier of Fortune, but with a more arcade feeling to it. And so far it looks pretty interesting and looks to be pumped with content according to the game's features. The game will release in the next few days, so I guess we'll find out whether it ends up being good or not. Number 24, Brutal John. This looks to be a pretty tongue-in-cheek experience that doesn't take itself too seriously, like you would see in games like Shadow Warrior or Duke Nukem 3D. It has the same kind of gameplay as them, but with an early 2000s vibe, which I really like. The release date is planned to be in 22, and there's a demo for it available on Steam. Number 25, Voidborn. Again, we have another Ultra Kill inspired game, where it's all about style and fast movement. It combines a world akin to Dark Souls and mixes it with fast-paced gameplay with advanced movement and a near infinite potential number of combo opportunities. It looks pretty awesome, and I'm also looking forward to its full release. It's scheduled to come out sometime in 23, and there's a demo available on Steam. Number 26, Fortune's Run. We have more industrial field territory to clean up in Fortune's Run, an old school inspired shooter that also takes some RPG elements from games like Deus Ex and I Divine Cybermancy. The gameplay has a nice ebb and flow with its sense of motion, and the setting looks well thought out. The release date is unknown at this time, but I'm hoping that it's still on development because it looks really good. Number 27, Bloodhound. More fast-paced action, but with more appealing graphics that still invoke an old-school feeling to it. I really like the presentation of this game so far, and the environments have a nice blend of medieval architecture overrun by fire and brimstone. The release date is unknown at this time, but there is a demo available. So far, it looks really good. Has a Painkiller vibe to it. Number 28, Acheron. Over the past few years, we've seen a ton of indie games with PSX style graphics. In fact, Ultra Kill even has a filter option for it. But Acheron looks very much like something that you would play on the actual console itself. And so far it looks really impressive, adding a glitchy effect as if you were watching a botched VHS tape. Its release date is set in a future where the next Doom was a monumental disappointment. Number 29, Sprawl. More cyberpunk, more neon lights, and more dystopias to deal with in Sprawl, which I have to say has the kind of cyberpunk I really like, where it's incredibly watered down, lacks a lot of life and color, and makes you not want to live there. It also has an early 2000s feel that I really like, something that I've already said more than once in this video, but I can't help but notice it, and so far this game definitely has piqued my interest. The release date is to be determined. And finally, number 30, Gaz. This is one of the more interesting upcoming boomer shooters that I've found so far. It seems to have a very similar atmosphere to Herot, but with more polished visuals. There's not much gameplay. This is all I had found so far for the game, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this. The release date is to be announced. And that's it, guys. These are the 30 upcoming boomer shooters I'm really looking forward to. And while some of them have a lot of differences in their mechanics and gameplay and presentation, they still invoke the old school feeling that has been propagated thanks to the successes of the recent Doom entries, Ultrakill and Dusk. I cannot wait to see all of these games make it onto the market, and I can't wait to play them and eventually talk about them in further detail. Thank you for watching.